If you are a Rhino user, you have probably experienced this many times. You finish modeling something, then you have to switch back and forth between Rhino and a rendering software just to see how your design actually looks. This process can be time consuming, especially during the early stages of a project when you need to make quick design decisions and explore different ideas. But what if you could see materials, lighting, and the overall atmosphere of your project in real time while you are still modeling without ever leaving Rhino? This is exactly the idea behind D5 Lite. But the main question is D5 Lite going to replace D5 Render? What are the differences between these two tools? And who is D5 Lite actually designed for? In this video, we are going to answer all of these questions, explore the features of D5 Lite step by step, and find out whether this tool can become a useful part of your daily Rhino workflow. Hi, I'm Hussein, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to talk about D5 Lite. Before we explore its features, it is important to first understand what exactly D5 Lite is and what problem it was designed to solve. Despite what its name might suggest, D5 Lite is not simply a simplified or limited version of D5 Render. Instead, it is a real-time rendering plugin that runs directly inside Rhino, designed to make the early stages of the design process faster and more interactive. In many projects, especially during the early design phase, you are still exploring forms, testing different materials, or studying lighting conditions. At this stage, you usually don't need final quality renders. What really matters is being able to immediately see the results of your decisions and quickly evaluate different options without leaving your modeling environment. And this is exactly where D5 Lite becomes part of your workflow. Any changes you make to the model, materials, or lighting are displayed almost instantly in the rendering environment. So instead of constantly switching between Rhino and a separate rendering software, you can stay focused on the design process itself. However, there is one important point to mention. D5 Lite is not designed to replace D5 Render. These two tools are created for different stages of a project. D5 Lite focuses more on design exploration, testing ideas, and receiving instant visual feedback. Meanwhile, D5 Render remains the main environment for creating final renders, animations, and professional presentations. If I had to describe D5 Lite in just one sentence, I would say D5 Lite is a tool that makes the design process in Rhino more interactive, not a replacement for your final rendering software. Now that we understand what D5 Lite is, the next question is, who is this tool actually designed for? If you work in architecture, interior design, or landscape design, and you spend a large part of your workflow inside Rhino, D5 Lite can become one of the most useful tools in your design process. Imagine you are still in the early stages of a project. You are changing the building form, testing different materials, adjusting window positions, or exploring different lighting options. At this stage, your goal is usually not to create a final render. What you really need is to quickly understand how each decision affects the overall look and feel of your project. And this is exactly the stage where D5 Lite is designed to help. It focuses on the moment when speed of decision-making is more important than final rendering quality. Without leaving Rhino, you can see the results of your changes in real time while you are modeling, making it easier to compare different ideas and explore design options much faster. However, if your project has reached the presentation stage and you need outputs such as high-quality photorealistic renders, animations, or advanced presentation features, D5 Render is still the main choice. D5 Lite is not designed to replace it. Instead, it helps you reach that final stage faster and with a smoother workflow. Simply put, if we consider D5 Render as a tool for the final presentation of a project, D5 Lite is the tool that helps you make better design decisions throughout the creative process. Before we start working with D5 Lite, let's take a quick look at the installation requirements and system specifications. Currently, D5 Lite is only available for Windows, and it requires an NVIDIA RTX 20 series graphics card or newer to run properly. You also need to use Rhino version 6.1 or later, and to access the software, you need to sign in with your D5 account. The installation process itself is very simple. You just need to install the version that matches your Rhino version. If Rhino is open during the installation, the installer will ask you to close it first and then continue the setup. After installation, there are two ways to launch D5 Lite. You can either type the D5 Lite command in the Rhino command line, or use the D5 Lite button that will be added to your toolbar. If you have already signed in to your account through D5 Launcher or D5 Render, you don't need to log in again. The same account will automatically be used for D5 Lite as well. Now that D5 Lite is ready to use, it's time to open the software and explore how its workflow is designed. Before we start exploring the individual features of D5 Lite, let's first understand the overall logic behind how this software works. Once you understand its workflow, learning the rest of the features will become much easier. In D5 Lite, almost everything starts inside Rhino. First, you create your model in Rhino. Then you set up your materials and lighting just like you normally would inside the Rhino environment. D5 Lite receives this information in real time and displays the result in the rendering window. This means that almost every change you make to your model can be seen immediately. Once the overall look of the project starts to take shape, you can adjust the environment, apply visual effects, use the asset library to add elements such as plants, people, and other objects, and finally save different scenes of your project. All of these steps can be done without leaving Rhino. At the end of the process, depending on your project needs, you have two different options. If you only need a quick visual output, you can directly create a render from inside D5 Lite. However, if your project reaches the final presentation stage and you need higher quality outputs or advanced features such as animations, you can transfer your project information to D5 Render and continue working there. So, if I had to summarize the workflow of D5 Lite in one sentence, I would say model in Rhino, see the results instantly in D5 Lite, and if needed, transfer the project to D5 Render for the final presentation. Now that we understand the overall workflow, it's time to take a closer look at the most important feature of D5 Lite, real-time rendering. Without a doubt, the most important feature of D5 Lite is its real-time rendering capability, a feature that makes the design process much smoother and more interactive. In a traditional workflow, every time you make a change to your model, you usually have to wait and check the rendering result again. This constant switching between modeling and rendering can take a lot of time, especially during the early stages of design. But with D5 Lite, the process works completely differently. As soon as you open the D5 Lite window, Live Sync is enabled by default. From this moment on, any changes you make to your model, materials, or lighting inside Rhino will be displayed almost instantly in the rendering window. This means you no longer need to manually synchronize or update the render after every change. However, in some heavy projects, you may not want every single change to be synchronized continuously. In that case, you can disable Live Sync and use the Sync Once option instead. This option sends only the current changes to D5 Lite one time, giving you more control over when your project gets updated. Another useful feature in this section is Viewport Sync. When this option is enabled, moving the camera in Rhino will automatically move the D5 Lite camera along the same path. This means both windows will always show the same view of your project. Of course, if you want to control each camera independently, you can simply disable this option. Even in this mode, whenever you need to match the D5 Lite view with the current Rhino view, you can press the 0 key and instantly synchronize the cameras again. All of these features are designed with one main goal: to keep your focus on the design process and allow you to see the result of every decision immediately while you are modeling. Now, let's take a look at materials, one of the sections that clearly shows the unique workflow of D5 Lite. In D5 Lite, there is no separate panel for creating or editing materials. Instead, the plugin directly reads the native Rhino materials and displays them in the rendering environment. This means all material settings are still managed inside the Rhino material editor, and you don't need to recreate the same materials again in another software. For example, if you change the color of a material, add a texture, or adjust parameters such as transparency, reflection, roughness, or normal map, you simply make those changes inside Rhino. After synchronization, the results will appear almost instantly in the D5 Lite window. D5 Lite also converts different types of Rhino materials into their appropriate rendering equivalents. For example, glass and gem materials are converted into glass materials. Metal becomes a metal material. Emission is converted into a self-illuminated material, and materials such as paint, plastic, plaster, and custom are converted into general materials. The parameters you see in D5 Lite are mapped to their equivalent settings in D5 Render. So, if needed, you can continue refining or editing them later using the more advanced tools available in D5 Render. After materials, the next important part of the workflow is lighting. In this section, D5 Lite follows the same approach that we saw with materials. There is no separate panel for creating or editing lights. Instead, all lighting information is directly read from Rhino. So, if you want to add a new light to your project or change the position, color, intensity, angle, or size of an existing light, you simply do it inside Rhino. After synchronization, D5 Lite will automatically display the results in the rendering window. In the current version, D5 Lite supports several Rhino light types, including point light, spotlight, linear light, and rectangular light. Each of these lights is converted into its corresponding type inside the rendering environment. However, there is one important limitation to mention. Currently, directional light in Rhino is not supported by D5 Lite. Also, since Rhino does not have a built-in disk light, this type of light cannot be used in D5 Lite either. Finally, just like materials, lighting information can also be transferred to D5 Render through Live Sync. This allows you to continue the final lighting adjustments and rendering process in D5 Render whenever you need more advanced control. So far, we have prepared the model, materials, and lights of the project, but there is still one important element left: the light coming from the environment, which plays a major role in creating the overall mood and atmosphere of the scene. All of these settings are available through the environment section. There are two different methods for controlling the sky and natural lighting: geographic sky and HDRI sky. Each one is designed for a different purpose. If your goal is to study sunlight, shadow direction, and the impact of geographic location on your project, then geographic sky is the better choice. This mode receives information such as time, date, geographic location, and north direction directly from the Rhino file to simulate natural lighting conditions. Additionally, you can temporarily adjust the sun angle and explore different lighting scenarios without changing the original project information inside Rhino. However, if your goal is to quickly create an attractive visual atmosphere, HDRI Sky is usually the better option. With this method, you can import HDRI files into your project and adjust parameters such as light intensity, image rotation, and sun direction to achieve your desired mood in a short amount of time. D5 Lite also supports different file formats, including HDR, EXR, JPG, and JPEG. To summarize, if accurate sunlight simulation and realistic environmental lighting are your priority, geographic sky is the right choice. But if you want to quickly achieve a specific visual style or experiment with different atmospheres, HDRI Sky gives you more flexibility. Now that the environment lighting is set up, we can further refine the final appearance of the image using post effects and gain more control over color, lighting, and contrast. After setting up the model, materials, lighting, and environment of the project, we reach the final stage of preparing the image: post effects. The purpose of post effects is not to fix the lighting or materials of the project. Instead, it helps you fine-tune the final appearance of the image. In other words, this section is mainly used to create a more balanced and visually appealing result. The first important parameter here is exposure, which controls the overall brightness of the image. If your image looks too dark or too bright, this is usually the first setting you should adjust. You can also enable auto exposure if you want D5 Lite to automatically adjust the brightness based on the current camera view. In addition, you have access to different tools for adjusting contrast, highlights, shadows, temperature, tint, saturation, and other color settings. The important thing is that all of these changes can be seen instantly in the rendering window in real time. Another advantage of this section is that all post-effects settings are saved directly inside the Rhino file. This means that when you open the project again, these settings will automatically be restored. Also, if you have created different scenes for your project, each scene can store its own post-effects settings. When the project is transferred to D5 Render, these settings will be transferred as well. Now that we have adjusted the overall look of the image, it's time to explore one of the most useful features of D5 Lite, the asset library. After preparing the model and setting up the lighting and materials, the next step is usually adding environmental details, elements such as trees, plants, people, and other objects that help make the scene feel more realistic. For this purpose, D5 Lite provides an asset library that allows you to search for and add different models directly from inside the software. However, the interesting part is how these assets are managed. Each asset in D5 Lite actually has two different versions. The first version is a lightweight proxy model that appears inside Rhino. This version is only used for positioning, moving, rotating, and scaling the object. This keeps the Rhino file lightweight and prevents the workflow from slowing down. On the other hand, inside the D5 Lite rendering window, the same asset appears as a complete model with all of its details and materials. So, while you are working with a simple lightweight representation inside Rhino, you can still see the final high-quality result in the rendering environment. Using the asset library is also very simple. You just select the asset you want, and its proxy version will be added to your scene. From that moment, all operations such as moving, rotating, scaling, or deleting the object are done directly inside Rhino, while D5 Lite updates the result in the rendering window at the same time. This workflow allows you to keep the modeling environment smooth, even in projects with a large number of plants or objects, while maintaining high-quality visualization inside D5 Lite. Now that our project scene is complete, in the next section we will see how to save different views of the project as scenes, allowing you to quickly switch between different camera setups or create outputs from each one. During the design process, we usually don't work with just a single fixed view of the project. You may want to explore different camera angles, compare different lighting conditions, or prepare separate views for different parts of the project. To manage this workflow, D5 Lite provides a feature called Scene List. Each scene is basically a saved state of your project. When you create a scene, D5 Lite saves the camera position, environment settings, post-effects settings, exposure value, and even the aspect ratio of that view. So whenever you select that scene again, all of these settings will be restored exactly as they were before. For example, imagine you have prepared several views of a project for presentation: an exterior view, a living room view, and a lobby view. Instead of adjusting the camera position and image settings every time, you can simply click on the scene you need and everything will be restored instantly. Another important point is that when you later transfer the project to D5 Render, all camera information and scene settings will also be transferred. If you have saved specific environment and post-effects settings for each scene, those settings will be transferred to D5 Render as well. This makes it much easier to continue the project in D5 Render without losing the visual setup you created during the design process. So far, we have explored all the features that are directly related to the real-time rendering workflow. However, D5 Lite also provides another feature with a completely different purpose: AI mode. The goal of AI mode is not to create a final realistic render. Instead, it uses artificial intelligence for design exploration, testing different visual styles, and creating conceptual images. That is why this feature is especially useful during the early stages of a project, when you are still exploring ideas and searching for different design directions. To get started, you first need to provide the AI with a base image. This image can either be the current Rhino viewport, which is captured when you open D5 Lite, or a render that you have created in render mode. At any time, you can also capture a new base image and use that view to generate new results. After that, you can choose your preferred style. D5 Lite provides a collection of style presets designed for architecture, interior design, and landscape projects. In addition, you can write your own prompt to describe the features you want to see in the image, or even provide a reference image so the AI can take inspiration from its style, colors, or overall atmosphere. One of the most important settings in this section is structure match. This option controls how closely the generated image follows the structure of the original model. In creative mode, the AI has more freedom to introduce changes and generate more imaginative results. The accurate mode keeps the highest level of similarity to the original model, and default mode creates a balance between these two approaches. After adjusting these settings, you can start the image generation process. If the result is not what you expected, you can use regenerate to create new versions. You can also use iterate to select one of the generated images and continue developing it with additional changes. All generated results are saved in the history section, allowing you to review them later or compare different options. Overall, AI mode should not be considered a replacement for the design process. Instead, it is better to see it as a tool for idea exploration, quickly testing different styles, and discovering new design directions during the early stages of a project. After completing the project design, lighting setup, and image adjustments, it's time to create the final output. D5 Lite allows you to directly render an image from the current view. Before starting the rendering process, you can choose the output quality, file format, and aspect ratio based on your project requirements. For image quality, you have two options. The first one is standard, which allows you to create images up to 2K resolution. This option is suitable for design reviews, quick previews, or everyday sharing. The second option is high, which supports output up to 4K resolution and is a better choice for images that require more detail and higher quality. You can also choose between two output formats, PNG and JPG. PNG preserves higher image quality, while JPG provides a smaller file size. For image composition, D5 Lite gives you several aspect ratio options. You can match the image ratio with the Rhino viewport, or choose from common formats such as 16:9, 1:1, and other standard ratios. After selecting your settings, you only need to choose the file location, and D5 Lite will start the rendering process. However, it is important to remember that the main purpose of D5 Lite is to provide fast visual feedback during the design process. It is designed to help you explore ideas, evaluate decisions, and quickly generate visual outputs while working inside Rhino. For final high-end presentations, advanced animations, and more professional rendering features, D5 Render is still the dedicated solution. Before we finish the video, it's worth taking a look at the main strengths and limitations of D5 Lite. In my opinion, the biggest advantage of this software is the simplicity of its workflow. Almost everything happens directly inside Rhino, which means you don't need to constantly switch between different software just to check your changes. This makes the design process faster, smoother, and more focused. Another major benefit is the real-time visualization of changes. Being able to see the result of your decisions while you are still modeling can significantly improve the speed of the design process, especially during the early stages when you are exploring different ideas. The direct connection with D5 Render is also a strong advantage. If your project moves into the presentation stage, you can continue working on the same project inside the full D5 Render environment without having to start everything from the beginning. However, along with these advantages, D5 Lite also has some limitations that you should be aware of. Currently, the software is only available for Windows and requires an NVIDIA RTX graphics card. This means users on macOS or systems without compatible hardware cannot use it at the moment. Also, D5 Lite does not include the advanced features available in D5 Render, such as animation creation, more complete rendering tools, and many of the features designed specifically for final project presentations. But this is not necessarily a weakness. It is simply a result of the purpose D5 Lite was designed for. If you expect D5 Lite to be a complete solution for final quality rendering, it may not meet your expectations. However, if you see it as a tool for design exploration, testing ideas, and receiving instant visual feedback, then it does exactly what it was created for. Now that we have explored all the different sections of D5 Lite, it's time to summarize our overall thoughts about this tool. In my opinion, the most important feature of D5 Lite is not simply its ability to create beautiful renders. The real value of this software is that it makes the design process faster, smoother, and more interactive. In the past, many design decisions were made based on experience and imagination, and to see the actual result, we usually had to move the project into a separate rendering software. But D5 Lite reduces this gap significantly. Now, while you are still modeling, you can immediately see the impact of materials, lighting, environment settings, and many other changes. This allows you to explore ideas faster and make design decisions with more confidence. However, it is important to remember that D5 Lite is not designed to replace D5 Render. If your goal is to create final quality renders, animations, or professional presentations, D5 Render will still be your main tool. But If you spend most of your time in the design and concept development stage, D5 Lite can significantly improve the speed and efficiency of your workflow. In fact, if I had to summarize the role of these two tools in one sentence, I would say D5 Lite is for thinking and designing, D5 Render is for presenting and showcasing the final result. In my opinion, when these two tools are used together, they create a very smooth workflow, from the first idea and modeling stage in Rhino all the way to preparing final images for client presentations. I hope this video has given you a clear understanding of D5 Lite, its features, and its role in the architectural design workflow. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And if you have any questions or personal experience using D5 Lite, feel free to share them in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this tutorial. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.